This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We cover on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast short business episodes, concise private equity episodes, interviews with brilliant business leaders, brilliant private equity leaders, as well as sometimes irreverent or relevant episodes, however you want to look at it, from myself. Today's take is we're going to go through 10 stories we're following today, plus we'll have a couple PSs to add to that as well. We're also thrilled to note between the Becker's Healthcare Podcast, the Becker Private Equity Podcast, we're up to about 19 million downloads. I'll also, before we kick off the podcast today, there's a discussion of him internally here. A special shout out to Greg Miller, one of the great and most talented both sales guys and business thinkers of our era, just a brilliant sales and business leader, as well as Nader Samri, the chairman of Nimble Solutions, one of my favorite business colleagues to visit with and deal with, and as good a person as they come. Here are 10 stories that we're following today. First, a great article this morning in Yahoo Finance about the unemployment rate is starting to cause Fed Chairman Powell trouble. He's trying to get this balanced effort of keeping unemployment low and getting inflation down. As employment gets worse, or unemployment numbers get worse and up to 4.1%, he's got more pressure to cut rates, but that could lead to inflation. So the concept of the story is more and more challenges for Powell as he hits these two goals of low unemployment with low inflation. Second story, again from Yahoo Finance, most CEOs, 98 of the top 100 biggest company CEOs, are not giving money either to Biden or Trump at this point as they try and figure out where this is going. I thought that's fascinating. A third story from the Wall Street Journal, Ivy League social clubs, sort of those social clubs that sort of patrician people used to go to, are really struggling and taking it on the chin. Fourth, Best Buy, that if you're from the Midwest, we call the apt of the U.S., is up nearly 10% year to date and just keeps on keeping on and trying to emerge from just a store to a platform store to an e-store and everything else. And I give them credit for what they're trying to do and how well they're doing it. Fifth, we've got a separate podcast at Becker's Healthcare and Becker Private Equity on Andrew Whitty, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And there's 6 key points on him and UnitedHealthcare. I'll just go through 2 of those points very quickly for our audience. First, Andrew Whitty does, British by background, University of Nottingham. He served as the CEO of Optum, the largest part of United, before becoming CEO of United. And that's fascinating. It's very similar to Satya Nadella at Microsoft, serving as CEO of their largest division, their cloud division, before becoming CEO of Microsoft. And similarly, Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, serving as CEO of their growth engine, Amazon Web Services, before becoming CEO of Amazon. So Woody follows in those same footsteps after serving as CEO of Optum. Second, just a few financial stats on UnitedHealthcare. UnitedHealthcare is down about 6-7% this year, far better than CVS and Walgreens, not as good as Elevance and Cigna, which are up. UnitedHealthcare is the 5th largest company in the U.S. by revenues. Many people, I think, don't actually realize that it's that significant in revenues, but it's the 5th largest after Walmart, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and Apple. 6th story we're following today, and there's a separate podcast on Andrew Whitty in UnitedHealthcare at Becker's Healthcare and Becker Private Equity. Feel free to listen to it for a little more detail on Andrew. 6th, there's a podcast on taking advice from highly confident people. And this talks about often, you can't take advice from people that are so brilliant at something or think they're so brilliant at something that their advice almost isn't relevant to you. It's like if I try and take golf advice from Tiger Woods or tennis advice from Novak Djokovic, it's almost impossible for that to make sense to translate down to my level of the game, which is not so brilliant as either Tiger Woods or Novak Djokovic, just 2 icons of the game. Similarly, there's a guy, Alan Mulally, who used to be the CEO of Ford and then Boeing, and just a brilliant leader. He's sort of the Greg Miller of leadership when it comes to both this mix of sales skills and overall talent. And you can't almost take advice from people like that because they're playing at such a higher game. It's very hard to be able to translate that into our lives and what we're doing. So that's sort of the concept. And this concept of this podcast dealt with things like that. Who can you take advice from, who you can't take advice from, and so forth, and who you just wouldn't take advice from because their advice might be totally irrelevant. 7th story, for all the talk of Nordstrom struggling, and I tend to love Nordstrom, though it doesn't seem like its inventory is what it was at one point. It's up nearly 17% year to date and doing fantastic. Eighth, Macy's, the store that just won't quit, won't call it quit, is being valued in the private equity takeover bid at $7 billion. It's a bit of a real estate play. It's a bit of a retail play. I mean, Macy's has started to become down scale over the years. It's not as upscale as it once was, but hanging in there, better than expected. And, it's got some serious private equity interest. Ninth, Lululemon, down nearly 44% year to date. They've not used the size inflation some of the other chains have used. So I don't love shopping at Lulu as much as I do at a couple other stories that make X waist feel like Y waist. That makes me feel slimmer. 11th, a few other PS points. I know we said 10 points today. I'll just go with a couple more really quickly. At 10th, Saks Fifth Avenue buying Neiman Marcus in a $2.65 billion deal with backing by Amazon. Fascinating to see that. Then a couple other quick points. A PS here. The markets are pointing up this morning. Cannabis stocks are up 4 to 5% year to date. Bitcoin is up about 25% year to date, but up about a lot more than that over the last 12 months. And oil is right around $82 a barrel. Finally, JP Morgan Chase distributed a great piece this morning in their Eye on the Market series that talks about sort of this mix of the Supreme Court versus regulatory agencies and how much deference to give to regulatory agencies post this Chevron decision they had. In any event, so many other interesting things today. I'll leave you with those ones. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Thank you very much.